Welcome back to America Decides. Happy Friday to everyone. U.S. stocks finished today kind of flat, but up for the week as investors tried to assess and draw inferences from what may or may not be happening on the tariff front, trade deal front, all of it revolving around what the Trump administration is or isn't going to do with the future of the global economy as it relates to trade and tariffs. For more, I want to bring in CBS News MoneyWatch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. Kelly, always great to see you. We'll talk about stocks in a minute. I want to talk about the consumer sentiment numbers today because there's an interesting story there. Tell us what it is, and then we're going to talk about the more interesting story within those numbers about expectations, especially for those who define themselves living in America's middle class. But first things first.
Yeah, look, I mean, the story was bad, but better than expected, which I think in this environment was some welcome relief. Consumer sentiment was down more than 8% versus last month. But again, we kind of expected it to be a little bit worse. But really what seemed to make the change in the data is that this survey included April 9th, data from April 9th, of course, which was the day that the White House paused those reciprocal tariffs. But generally, it's still pretty bad. Consumers think that inflation is going to be 6.5%. And we saw versus January a 32% drop in that expectations index, kind of what people expect the economy to look like. We haven't seen a drop that big since the 1990 recession. And of course, that goes back to when the president started in office back in January, Major.
And that expectation metric matters because in historical terms, it tends to be, if not an absolute predictor, a rough predictor of future behavior, does it not?
That's absolutely right. I mean, it can also be an indicator, by the way, for a recession. I don't say that word lightly, but it has been an indicator. And that is because when consumer sentiment is poor, you start to see a place where consumer spending drops significantly. Now, that doesn't always happen, but if consumers feel like things are bad, they might start to react that way.
Thanks so much.